The moment I knew the tides were turning wasn't when they took my name off the company website. It wasn't when they stopped CCing me on strategic emails, or even when my parking spot mysteriously became reserved for Olivia Armobile Nail. No, it was when I walked into the boardroom for our quarterly review, coffee in hand, prepared like always, and found Olivia sitting in my chair. Legs crossed, acrylic nails clicking across my old iPad, eyes locked on mine with that smug eyelash extension flutter. Didn't get the memo? She chirped, popping her gum like punctuation. We're going in a fresher direction. Now, for context, I'd given 15 years to that firm. No drama, no scandals, no missed deadlines. I was the person who made sure the ship stayed afloat when the CEO accidentally vacationed in Bali during the 2012 compliance audit. I coached junior analysts through margin reconciliations like a damn therapist with a calculator. And yet, here I was, being treated like I'd wandered in off the street asking where the bathroom was. But I didn't flinch. I didn't give her the satisfaction. Just smiled, nodded, and walked to the side of the room like a ghost at my own funeral. You learn to stay silent when the knives are still coming down. Now, quick pause here since we're getting into it. If you're one of the 97% listening to these stories without subscribing, go ahead and smash that button. It's free, it helps more than you know, and honestly, it keeps the team caffeinated enough to keep digging up tales like this one. Plus, Olivia hates when people support working professionals over influencers, so bonus. Anyway, back to my desk being stolen by nepotism in Laubautin heels. Olivia, fresh out of a marketing boot camp and TikTok famous for reviewing overpriced candles, had been strategically placed in our firm by her uncle, Aka the CEO, supposedly to streamline digital branding, but we all knew what it really was. A trust fund brat with a nose for hashtags and zero understanding of financial instruments. Suddenly deciding our fortune, 500 clients needed girl boss energy. I was introduced to her in the hallway like I was the janitor. This is Auntie Diane, she laughed to another new hire. She's like the institutional memory, like a living filing cabinet. To her, I was legacy clutter, a fax machine in an iPhone world. But what she didn't know, what none of them bothered to check, was just how quietly powerful that filing cabinet still was. The CEO, drunk on his own rebrand, started echoing Olivia's rhetoric. We need agile thinkers. And you're steady but not nimble. I'd handled two hostile takeovers, smuggled our firm out of an insider trading scandal, and negotiated an acquisition in Mandarin without Google Translate. But sure, let's prioritize emoji fluency. They moved my office, then moved it again. Eventually, I was sharing a windowless cubicle with the HR coordinator and a 3-foot-tall succulent named Greg. Still, I stayed. Why? Because when you've spent 15 years weaving the tapestry, you don't yank the thread at the first dropped stitch. You watch, you wait, you document. And I did document. Every skipped protocol, every email misfiled, every Olivia innovation that violated 3 regulatory clauses and a basic understanding of math. I kept it all, not out of pettiness, but precision. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't just poor leadership. This was arrogance dressed as disruption. And arrogance, left unchecked, devours itself. So when I got a calendar invite titled Leadership Alignment, Next Gen Vision Strategy, with no agenda and no request for my presence, I knew the knife was midair. But I didn't duck. I sharpened my own. It was almost poetic, really, watching my replacement post selfies in my chair, caption taking the throne nail sparkles. The lighting was good, I'll give her that. Even the best filter can't hide what's coming when the wrong queen wears the crown. The first time Olivia took credit for my work, it was almost funny. Almost. She'd presented a risk mitigation model to the partners. My model, the same one I'd built brick by brick during the 2020 volatility nightmare, while she was probably still reviewing exfoliators on YouTube, and called it her proprietary blend of generational intuition and AI-powered forecasting. She actually said that with a straight face, while I sat 3 chairs down from her, sipping burnt conference room coffee like a guest at someone else's funeral. I waited for anyone to speak up, to say, isn't that Diane's, or didn't we implement that last year? But no, just a sea of nods, one partner even muttering brilliant under his breath like he hadn't once called me the firm's quiet shield. I didn't say a word, not because I was scared, because I was watching. Next week, she gave an all-hands culture sync where she literally opened with a slideshow titled Old School vs. Bold Cool. Guess which side of the screen I ended up on? Spoiler, I was represented by a gray filing cabinet and a frowny face. She didn't say my name, but she didn't have to. Half the staff glanced at me when she clicked to slide 4, we've outgrown caution. She'd only been there 3 months. Then came the restructuring rumors. Quiet at first, whispers in the elevator. Slack channels suddenly set to private. A spreadsheet I maintained for over a decade, tracking high net worth accounts, deadlines, compliance flags, was suddenly migrated to her team without a single heads up. When I logged in, I found access revoked and my name scrubbed from the file history like I'd never existed. That's when I knew. This wasn't just career cannibalism. This was erasure. I approached the CEO, casually I thought, after the Q2 strategy meeting where Olivia pitched turning our internal reports into bite-sized trend recaps with emojis. He didn't look up from his phone. Look, Diane, he sighed. You've always been a good steward of our legacy systems, but let's be honest. We're not in the stewardship era anymore. We're in the scaling era. Olivia speaks the language. You? Translate what exactly? I asked, voice even. He smiled, one of those thin, patronizing Wall Street smirks that comes with a trust fund and no consequences pedigree. You're not a queen, you're infrastructure. Don't take this personal, I wanted to laugh. Not a queen? Buddy, I had kept this kingdom from burning when your offshore account had a naming error that could have tanked the entire merger. But again, I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I noted it, tucked it into the mental ledger I was quietly building like a war accountant. The final straw came wrapped in beige legalese. I was reviewing an internal memo about the upcoming merger, the same one I'd helped architect back when we were still pretending to be value first. It outlined officer signatories, authorizations, operational oversight. My name wasn't on it. That might not have shocked me, except it used to be. Legally. In fact, 6 months ago, during a PR scandal that had the CEO hiding under his beach umbrella, I'd been appointed acting managing partner by vote. They never formally revoked it. We were advised to wait until the merger closed to finalize any changes. I had the email, I had the memo, I had the vote, so why was my name now nowhere? I didn't send a heated email. I didn't stomp into legal. I walked into HR, asked for a printed copy of my personnel file, smiled politely, and left with a folder thick enough to make Olivia's acrylics tremble. Back at my apartment, I poured a glass of Syrah, opened my laptop, and cross-referenced everything. They hadn't undone the appointment, and if they hadn't undone it, then in the eyes of the federal government, during a pending merger where operational control is everything, I wasn't legacy clutter. I was the throne, and they were squatting on it. Monday morning smelled off. You know, that stale hallway funk when something's been sprayed to cover up rot, not clean it. That's what it felt like when I walked through the revolving glass doors of the firm, polished on the outside, festering underneath. My badge didn't beep. At first, I thought it was a glitch. Happens sometimes after a system refresh. I tapped it again. Nothing. The security guy, new baby-faced, probably still learning where the bathrooms are, gave me a polite "just wait here" and vanished behind the glass. 10 minutes later, he returned with a tight smile and a clipboard. Avoiding eye contact like I was a rabid raccoon, someone dared him to shoo out. I've been asked to escort you upstairs, he said. Administration, not my department head, not legal, not even the CEO, just administration. That's how you label garbage day on an org chart. When the elevator doors opened on the 17th floor, I already knew. My office door had been repainted. I don't know how they managed it so fast, but the brass nameplate D. Taylor was gone. In its place, a tiny gold plaque that said Creative Strategy Hub. Inside, Olivia was perched behind my desk like a cat who just pissed in someone else's laundry and dared them to say something. She wore a blazer 2 sizes too trendy and sunglasses indoors, like she thought this was her Vogue spread and not a regulatory liability in progress. She didn't even flinch when she saw me. "Oh hey," she said, "like we were gym buddies. Didn't they tell you? We're doing a full realignment. Less siloed, more synergistic. You know," she had redecorated. My framed photos, my niece graduating, my old mentor shaking my hand at our IPO bell ring gone, replaced by pastel vision boards and an LED sign that said "Hustle Harder." I stared at her, not the decorations, her, the living embodiment of nepotism in highlighter eyeliner. She smiled back like we were playing a game only she knew the rules to. Then my phone buzzed. A Slack notification popped up from the company-wide channel. Olivia had posted a selfie, sitting at my desk, mug in hand, feet kicked up on the hardwood. Caption: "Took the throne crown nail sparkles #new era #boss vibes." There it was. The moment my replacement stopped being theoretical and became a JPEG with 42 reactions and 3 heart emojis from interns who didn't know better. I didn't lash out, didn't scream. That's what they expected: meltdown, HR incident, legally clean justification for pushing me out. Instead, I pulled out my phone, took a screenshot of the post, one clean capture. Proof. Then 2 guys from facilities showed up with that awful, sheepish look like they'd been told to escort someone to HR but hadn't practiced the route. "We'll need your badge," one said, barely above a whisper. "No explanation?" I asked. "Just protocol," he muttered. "No paperwork, no exit interview, no reason, just protocol." So I handed over the badge, smoothed my jacket, and walked out. Past the executive lounge I designed the budget for, past the glass hallway I lobbied to have tinted so traders wouldn't pass out in July, past Olivia's selfie now plastered in the internal newsletter as a fresh start. Outside, the sunlight hit different. Not warm, not cold, just honest. I stood there for a moment, letting the weight of 15 years slide off my shoulders like a bad coat. Then I opened my notes app and typed 4 words, forward 1 email. Wait. Then I smiled. Because while Olivia was busy posting selfies with my coffee mug, she forgot one thing: that throne she took. It still had my signature welded underneath. I didn't cry. I didn't rage clean. I didn't call a friend to vent into a pint of Cherry Garcia. I went home, kicked off my heels, fed my ancient cat a tuna treat, and turned my dining table into a war desk. one pot of coffee, and 3 lighting candles later. Ironic, really. Since Olivia's startup idea involved emotionally intelligent candles, I had my personnel file, employment contracts, board memos, and archived Slack threads fanned out like a paper crime scene. The first thing I looked for was the April vote. 6 months ago, when the CEO's vacation photos got leaked alongside some compromising communications with a junior analyst and a suspicious shell company, the board panicked. It needed someone with a clean record and client trust. They didn't even ask. I got a text that read, "Your acting managing partner effective immediately. Paperwork follows. Thank you for being dependable." I remembered the words exactly because that night, I'd toasted myself with boxed wine and microwave popcorn. Buried in my personnel file was the formal notice. Diane Taylor appointed acting managing partner per emergency vote. Effective April 6. Reversal pending post-review. Except that reversal, it never happened. I checked everything, email chains, HR updates, quarterly org charts, nothing revoked it. I even dug up a payroll stub showing the temporary title bump lasted 3 pay cycles and then just quietly disappeared like they hoped no one would notice. But here's the thing. The SEC would notice. See, our firm was mid-merger with an overseas asset manager. That meant everything officer roles. Compliance, oversight, operational control had to be declared officially and publicly. If someone holds legal authority during a merger window and the paperwork isn't amended, it's not just an oversight, it's fraud adjacent, and I was still listed. I pulled up the latest Form ADV, the regulatory filing every firm submits to the SEC to identify key partners and controllers. Name, Diane Taylor, Managing Partner, acting effective. April 6, no termination date listed. My pulse slowed, not spiked, slowed, like my body had switched from fight or flight to sniper mode. That throne Olivia posted about, still legally mine, which meant every deal she signed, every document she greenlit, every boss babe brand partnership she'd been bragging about on LinkedIn, all potentially invalid, because she didn't have the authority to sign a damn napkin without my digital blessing. I made one call, not to a lawyer, not to HR, I called Marla. Marla works at the state securities office. We've crossed paths for years, compliance panels, regulatory briefings, the occasional awkward hotel bar mixer where everyone wears a lanyard and pretends to like crudités. She picked up on the second ring. "Diane," she said, half surprised. "You alive? Rumors are flying." "Live and legally ambiguous," I replied. "Quick question. Hypothetically, if someone was still listed as managing partner during a pending merger, and that designation was never formally rescinded, then there's still the point of control," she interrupted. "If it's in the ADV and not amended, they're it." "Why? Just cleaning out some files," I said. "Thanks, Marla." She paused. "Diane, is there something I should be looking into?" "Not unless Olivia posts another selfie." I hung up. Then I opened a clean Google Doc, titled it Contingency Notice Legal Control Documentation, and began drafting what would become the most polite wrecking ball ever written. The pain was still there, of course it was. 15 years doesn't vanish because a clown in heels with a ring light steals your chair. But pain, when filtered through precision, that's where the real sharp edges form. Olivia had barely warmed my seat before the glittering circus began. Within a week, firm's once reliable homepage, clean, navy, discreet, morphed into a scrolling nightmare of gradients, buzzwords, and stock photos of Gen Z techs in beanies pretending to understand yield curves. The new tagline, capital, culture. Crypto, I wish I were kidding. She announced the rollout of a next-era activation strategy, which was just a repackaged PowerPoint of my 2022 Q4 growth report, but with words like vibes, ecosystem synergy, and millennial brand intimacy slapped over the charts like mustard on filet mignon. But the crown jewel of her genius? NFTs. Yes. Olivia, who once misspelled fiscal as physical on a quarterly update, pitched non-fungible tokens to our high-net-worth clientele, not as investments. No, as bespoke ownership experiences. One pitch deck, accidentally forwarded to me by a still loyal junior associate, offered clients exclusive digital collectibles tied to financial milestones. You hit $10M in assets under management? Congrats. You get a holographic Ethereum lion. Achieve portfolio diversification? Here's a 3D animated bull doing yoga. I nearly choked on my coffee. Then the cracks started forming. 2 of our oldest clients, both legacy money, both allergic to gimmicks, reached out. One of them, Charles Pennington Roman III, who still signs emails with sincerely, CP, Roman III, forwarded me a message with the subject line, "Thought you'd want to see what your successor thinks I want for my 75th birthday." Attached was Olivia's full client engagement vision, offering him a digital commemorative NFT that read, "OG of ROI Money Sparkles # client goals since the 80s." It came with a link to claim his personalized crypto wallet. The man has never once used an ATM without a handwritten post-it reminder. He wrote, "Diane, is this a joke? I'm pulling my funds if this continues. Do let me know where you land next." I sent a one-line reply, "Sit tight, Charles. Timing is everything." Then, I forwarded a single email. Just one. Not to Olivia, not to the CEO, not even to HR, who were still too busy spray painting over their own mistakes. I sent it to Robert Levinson, our firm's in-house legal counsel. Harvard Law wears boadies. Hates surprises more than he hates irregular footnotes. Subject, ADV Officer Confirmation April 6 Filing Body. Hi Robert, following recent public-facing changes to firm leadership, I thought it prudent to confirm the current standing of my operational designation, as listed in the firm's April 6 filing with the SEC. As no formal reversal or amendment appears in the record, I remain, per official documentation, the acting managing partner. Attached are relevant filings, communications, and payroll acknowledgments for your review. No action needed at this time. Just wanted to ensure alignment and transparency as the merger review proceeds. Best, Diane Taylor. There were no threats, no accusations, no italics, just facts sewn together with silk thread and left gently in his inbox like a loaded gun on a lace doily. Within 20 minutes he read it. Within an hour I saw that he'd opened every attachment. And sometime that afternoon, while Olivia live-streamed and asked me anything about redefining hedge funds as vibey spaces, Robert Levinson went dark. No Slack. No calls. Just a ghost in legal robes, probably sitting in his office replaying the entire merger prep in his mind with slow, creeping dread. I didn't need to scream to be heard. I just needed to whisper on paper. The silence was deafening. After my email to Levinson, the firm's normally buzzing legal Slack channel turned into a graveyard. No morning compliance roundup. No memos about pre-merger review. Nothing but a single pinned message from 4 days ago that read "Don't share merger materials outside secure portal, non-negotiable." I could picture him, Robert Levinson, seated at his desk like a man who just realized he's been walking around a minefield in flip-flops. Bowtie undone, glasses smudged, whispering a long, steady fook while scanning the SEC filings again and again. Because here's the thing about acting titles. They may be temporary in intent. If you don't undo them properly, especially during a regulatory review, they're binding. And in our case, the merger was still under the microscope. Every controlling officer, every signature trail, every digital key had to be airtight. And my name was still on everything that mattered, which meant every contract, every disclosure, every Olivia-led initiative was floating in legal purgatory, possibly invalid, possibly criminal. I didn't need confirmation from Levinson. The proof came in the form of inaction. No company-wide newsletters that day. No LinkedIn flexes from Olivia. Even her Instagram story, usually updated with latte art and CEO energy boomerangs, went dark. I waited. And then, Olivia, undeterred by what she didn't yet know, tried to launch her magnum opus. She called it Phoenix Day. A full-on rebranding initiative, complete with a press release, influencer partnerships, glitzy gala announcement for select clients, and God help us all, a commemorative digital Firebird NFT for every attendee, paired with personalized thank you videos generated by AI. The invite went out firm-wide. Subject line: Tomorrow's vision. Today's vibe. Phoenix Day is here. Fire. I actually laughed. Out loud. Alone in my apartment, wearing socks with holes, eating leftover pad thai like a divorced oracle watching her prophecies come true. But then the kicker came. At 4:32 p.m. I got a LinkedIn message from Samir Vance. Samir was one of our whales, a venture portfolio guy with fingers in everything from biotech to vertical farming. Big money, old school demeanor. Had once fired a junior analyst for calling him bro. Message read: Hey, are you still with the firm? Because things are getting weird. Olivia just sent me something about tokenized shareholder engagement with confetti gifts. I stared at it for a long time, not because I didn't know how to reply, but because I knew exactly what that meant. It meant Olivia had tried to move funds, sign contracts, commit client capital without authority. She didn't just step on a rake. She stepped on a legal landmine barefoot while live streaming it. I opened my own secure folder, the one no one else knew existed. In it, a draft notice labeled Statement of Concern, Operational Authority Conflict, Merger Impact. It was ready. All it needed was a timestamp. Across town, I imagined Levinson pacing, phone pressed to his temple, sweat soaking the collar of his once crisp shirt. Maybe he was on the phone with the merger council. Maybe with the CEO. Maybe with the regulators already. Didn't matter. The moment was here. The throne was tilting. And the crown still had my name engraved beneath the gold. The crisis didn't explode. It seeped in like water under a locked door, slow at first, almost unnoticed, until suddenly the entire floor was under 6 feet of regulatory sludge, and no one could remember how to swim. It began with a series of quiet pings. One from the Merger Council, asking for clarification on officer signatory authority. Another from Compliance, requesting updated designation documents that should have been filed post-April. Then one from the Sex Oversight Coordinator, flagged urgent, seeking confirmation on who currently held operational control of the firm. By the time the fourth ping landed, this one from the Foreign Investment Board partner, the lights on Levinson's phone looked like a Vegas strip. He didn't answer. He couldn't. He was too busy reading the forwarded email from me for the third time, now paired with a time-stamped PDF from the SEC database showing that, yes, as of now, Diane Taylor was still the legal managing partner. Not was, is, which meant every contract Olivia signed, every asset movement authorized, every shred of public communication under her leadership, legally non-binding at best, potentially fraudulent at worst. Levinson didn't scream. He didn't even curse. He just stood up during a high-level call with the CEO, merger attorneys, and the strategic acquisitions team, holding his phone like it had started to hiss. No words, no fanfare. He walked behind the CEO, leaned down, and silently slid the screen in front of him. The CEO, mid-sentence about brand alignment in global markets, glanced at the screen, squinted, and read. The exact moment he reached the section of my email that included the filing date and SEC control clause, his whole face changed. It started with the jaw, that tight clench men get when they realize they've stepped in something they can't power walk out of. Then the eye twitch. And finally, the full realization, brow furrowed, color draining like a bad stock ticker, when the timestamp sank in April 6, 6 months ago. Half a year of Olivia's Fantasyland leadership. 6 months of empowerment brunches, meaningless initiatives, and one very real legal dumpster fire wrapped in glitter and corporate hashtags. The room went silent. You could hear the weight of the merger collapsing in real time. Why wasn't this reversed? The CEO finally asked, voice brittle. Levinson didn't answer. The managing attorney on the speaker call, cool, British, emotionally extinct, spoke instead. I'm sorry, is this individual not in the office anymore? Levinson cleared his throat. She was walked out. Her access revoked. The current operational control, by federal record, remains with Diane Taylor. He'd have stunned silence. Then, so your niece has been signing documents she doesn't have authority for? The CEO didn't answer. His throat bobbed like he was trying to swallow a very expensive lawsuit. He picked up the phone, dialed, waited, straight to voicemail, he muttered, palm tightening around the receiver. He hit redial, still nothing. And then finally he shouted, shoving back from the table, call her. Now, not Levinson, me. Everyone in the room knew who her was. No one said my name, but they all knew the ghost they'd tried to bury was now the only person who could unlock the vault door before the whole institution got crushed under compliance rubble. Too late, too deep. That's what happens when you crown an influencer and ignore the architect. And now, the throne was sinking fast. The phone lit up like it had a guilty conscience. I didn't even need to check the number. Only one man would call me 5 times in 30 seconds with that kind of desperation, and still think he had a say in how the conversation went. It rang once, twice. I let it vibrate against the table, its frantic buzzing almost rhythmic against the wood. Then I tapped decline with the same calm you use to swat a fly you've seen coming for hours. The screaming, I imagined, was theatrical. The CEO doesn't speak when he's cornered. He performs, storming down hallways like he's got somewhere to go, throwing words like grenades, hoping one lands with enough panic to reset the room. Call her, now! Echoing down the halls like a broken fire alarm no one's sure how to shut off. But I wasn't in the building anymore. I was at my kitchen table, laptop open, herbal tea steaming beside me like a courtroom stenographer to my final act. Click, open folder, affiliation exit legal templates. Click, document, formal notice of rescission managing partner authority. Click, cursor blinking, waiting. To whom it may concern, per documentation filed and active with the Securities and Exchange Commission, I, Diane Taylor, remain the official acting managing partner of firm name as of the date of this notice. Given the unauthorized and unnotified reassignment of executive authority, material misrepresentation of operational status, the irreversible breach of trust caused by internal leadership, I am formally dissolving my affiliation and fiduciary responsibility to the firm, effective immediately. Compliance violations, if any, resulting from acts committed without my oversight, shall be reviewed under proper regulatory procedure. All supporting documentation is attached. Kindly direct all future correspondence to my legal counsel. No venom, no flare, just scalpel-precise detachment. I reread it once, twice, no typos, no doubt. I clicked export as PDF, attached the file to an email titled Formal Rescission Compliance and Legal Control, and added 3 recipients: Levinson, the SEC liaison, and the firm's merger compliance officer. No CC to Olivia. She didn't even know which paper crown she'd just snapped in half. I hit send. And just like that, the trapdoor opened, because now the firm was rudderless. The merger legally suspended until a new controlling officer could be formally ratified, something that, by rule, can't happen while the last one's status is still under regulatory dispute, which it now was, which meant every pending transaction froze. Every investor disclosure now came with a footnote the size of a tombstone. And Olivia? She was just a girl in heels, holding a crown no one recognized anymore. I closed the laptop, took a sip of tea, and smiled, not from revenge but from relief, from the sheer precision of it all. I never raised my voice. I never slammed a door. I didn't need to. I was never legacy clutter. I was the system they didn't know they still ran on. It happened faster than anyone expected. Not with a bang, but with a flurry of reply-alls and a single regulatory memo that sent the entire building into slow-motion cardiac arrest. Subject: immediate operational freeze. Chain of control disputed, the SEC made it official. All operations frozen, client accounts locked pending review, merger proceedings suspended indefinitely. The firm couldn't even send out a press release without triggering a secondary inquiry. One of our legacy investors, an oil executive with more litigation experience than Olivia had shoes, called his legal team before noon. By 3 p.m., four of our largest clients had formally withdrawn pending transfer to competitor firms. Inside sources told me the boardroom looked like triage. Partners on phones, lawyers flipping through contracts with white-knuckled fury, the CFO pale and sweating like he could already hear the quarterly earnings call bleeding in his ears. The merger collapsed the next morning. Not postponed. Terminated. Acquisition partner issued a public statement citing unexpected governance conflicts and lack of operational clarity. Translation: we almost bought a haunted house. Olivia, of course, was served up as the sacrificial lamb. Press releases whispered about unauthorized initiatives, miscommunication, and departures aligned with new strategic focus. She was quietly removed from all social channels, her name deleted from firm literature, and most deliciously, her access to the very digital throne she'd once posed on was revoked at 6:04 a.m. But everyone inside knew. This wasn't about Olivia. She was the spark, sure. The glitter bomb that blinded the board into thinking youth equaled leadership. But the real failure? That belonged to the man who brought her in, handed her the keys, and never once checked if the ignition was wired to a detonator. And I was gone before the smoke even rose. Gone, but not silent. That week I sat in a crisp white blouse, camera on, eyes steady, as I joined a video call with the partners of a rival firm who'd reached out after word spread. Not gossip, respect. The kind that grows in hushed tones from assistants who whisper your name like folklore. They made their pitch. I listened. When they asked what my consulting rate would be, I smiled and named a number that would make my old salary blush. The partner blinked, then laughed. Worth every penny, he said. As we wrapped up the call, my inbox pinged. Olivia. She'd finally unblocked me, apparently. The subject line, "Are you happy?" There was a screenshot of her infamous throne selfie attached, timestamped, now just a relic of a kingdom built on gloss and hubris. I hit reply, typed 5 words. Careful, some thrones are booby-trapped, no sign-off, no need. I hit send, closed my laptop, and poured a drink. And in the quiet hum of my apartment, no chaos, no crisis. Just silence earned, I finally exhaled. Fade to black. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit 'em.